Hey guys, tonight we drift beneath an endless quilt of jewel-bright constellations, flickering over an inky Pacific expanse, each star teasing you to remember its purpose. You probably won't survive this without learning to read the sky. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop your location and local time in the comments below. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You settle into the gentle cradle of your double-hulled canoe finger, tracing the smooth curvature of the deck as your heartbeat syncs with the rhythm of the waves. In the distance, the Southern Cross glows like an ancient compass, rows its 4 points, guiding you toward islands you've never seen. You feel salt mist kiss your cheeks, taste the faint tang of seaweed on the air, and hear the soft creak of timber beneath your palms. This is Star Compass Navigation, the life-saving method by which Polynesian explorers mapped the ocean without charts or metal instruments. Before venturing into the abyss, you attend training nights in sheltered lagoons where pale torches flicker on shore and wooden star compasses are laid out on the sand. Tutor navigators carve the 32 cardinal headings into coconut boards, a teaching aid akin to training wheels for the cosmos. Oddly, they warn you about the glow of bioluminescent plankton, sometimes called dolphinutation, because it can trick novices into thinking land is near quirky fringe tidbit. Your task is to steer blindfolded along a stick chart maze, relying only on memorized star lines, while promises of roasted taro await those who pass. Laughter ripples through your group, ice-breaking the tension before real storms roll in. From around AD 1000 onward, Polynesian voyagers reached Hawaii using celestial navigation alone, proving mastery over a vast blue desert mainstream fact. You lean forward to study the steady climb of a star above the horizon, its arc whispering direction. It is a memorized routine passed down in oral tradition as reliable as breathing. Historians still argue whether these patterns were universal across island chains or tailored seasonally to each voyage. But for you, each nightly shift in star position feels as personal as a whispered promise from your ancestors. By the time you master the 32 primary sail star lines, it is like learning a cosmic subway map. Your head hums with names of chromatic points, Ka Lupe Ka, Oho Ka Manu. You recite them in a soft chant, turning each syllable into a heartbeat. Frigate birds that never perch on water fly overhead, and you learn their routes to signal nearby land, a quirky fact that feels like overhearing birds gossip about reef parties. You pause to catch a shooting star streaking across the sky, silently making a navigation wish. Spoiler luck is not an approved unit of Polynesian measurement. Your eyes flick between star patterns and the ocean's dark rise. You sense hidden currents guiding you, but tonight you focus on the sky. Like a silent orchestral conductor, the star compass arranges stakes for your journey. The Southern Cross sets the latitude line, Aldebaran marks the turning point, and Sirius glints as both guide and warning. Veer too far south, and you will bump into chilly Antarctic waters. Navigation without instruments forces you to trust your naked eyes. No compass needle will betray you, but clouds sure will. Trust the gaps. Once in the chill of dawn, you watched Polaris dip below the caldera rim of your home island, a callback to when you first realized that even fixed stars drift slightly over generations. Elder navigators taught you to note star evolution over centuries. They would joke that crocodile dung sunscreen is passé seriously, don't ask, while reminding you that the rising of Pleiades signals winter fishing seasons. That absurd sunscreen story sticks with you like a half-forgotten dream. Your mind drifts to the carved bird effigy at the canoe's prow, its beak pointing toward Manu Oku, the star cluster you follow when islands loom. That prow carving is not decoration. It is a practical sighting tool, aligning your gaze at eye level. Every canoe builder knew the hull's curvature must match horizon height at sea, a simple but critical design fact. Double-hulled canoes provided remarkable stability for voyages across thousands of ocean miles, mainstream fact. Tonight, you notice that trade winds whisper through the rigging, carrying seabird calls that blend with the hush of water on the hull. Those winds taught you to match sail angle to the tilt of rising stars, a delicate dance that makes even beach volleyball look like toddler play. You recall your grandmother's teasing if you can't sip coconut water and sight Kalupe while balancing on a bamboo beamstick to YouTube travel vlogs. Talk about humble pie, no VR headset can mimic this gentle rocking beneath a flawless galaxy. As you exhale, the wind shifts, carrying a breath of distant climates. You track a streak of orange near the eastern horizon, Mars, your occasional co-pilot when the sky is clear. Hanging in the hull's cradle, you imagine ancient sailors humming to stave off sleep, using subtle shifts in water temperature to confirm latitude. Historians still argue whether they measured water chill by taste or by watching tiny sea creatures react. I will leave that debate simmering like a pot of coconut stew. In this moment, you realize the star compass is not just a tool, but a living pulse. Each star guides a heartbeat. Each chant locks your memory to the swell of the ocean. You breathe in sync with cosmic rhythm, feeling that vaulted sky is less an expanse, but a detailed street grid leading to home. And just like that, your mind quiets, lulled by the steady pulse of cosmic instructions, a lullaby of navigation whispering, you're never lost when you know the sky. You tuck this method in as you would a blanket, carrying the star compass in your veins as you drift toward distant shores. 3 jokes down, plenty more twinkles to come. You watch as elders gather under a yawning night sky, spears of torchlight flickering against dark palms. Their faces glow bronze in the firelight, each wrinkle a map of voyages taken. They speak in low rhythmic chants, not the distracted mumblings you use while scrolling social media, and you feel the weight and warmth of tradition pressing you forward. This is where true learning begins. Elders, your celestial teachers, sculpt novices into living star compasses. At dusk, before the fire cools, you join the circle on a sandy beach. A grand navigator, an ancient figure known as Makali'i Hoku Star Hunter, holds a polished kahoa, a shallow coconut shell bowl painted with points representing the rising and setting stars. Makali'i's hands move like soft sea foam as he nudges novices to place small shells on the star positions. You pick up a shell feeling its ridges like secret Morse code. Each placement is met with a quiet ripple of approval, a mainstream historical fact Polynesian navigators crafted star compasses in this fashion for centuries, and some wood models dating back to the 19th century survive in museum collections in Hawaii and New Zealand. Your neighbor misplaces a shell near Sirius instead of Vega. The elder tut-tuts eyebrows knitting like storm clouds and whispers, "That's Tinder territory, wrong swipe." A light joke snaps through the circle, easing the tension. The elders chuckle, approving your neighbor's blush. That's one down in the joke quota. Next, the teaching intensifies. Makali'i leans close, his breath carrying the scent of roasted taro. He points to a dip on the horizon. You trace it to Antares, rising scarlet and defiant. He explains how this star signals a shift in season and guides you to northern atolls when the trade winds slacken. A fringe tidbit surfaces. Some long ago navigators claimed that when Antares rises, coconut trees whisper their alignment to the stars, an auditory hallucination they called the coconut choir. Scientists roll eyes at this, but you smile, tucking the story alongside crocodile dung sunscreen anecdotes. Historians still argue whether tales of sinking palms were metaphorical teaching tools or literal beliefs. Lessons run deep. Each elder embodies a seam in the star quilt. One breathes life into the eastward risers, another maps the southward setters, and a third animates the elusive zenith guide stars. You watch Mana, an elder, as quick with humor as with knowledge, casually toss seashells at novices, saying, "If you drop this in the ocean, better hope for Wi-Fi, because you're not finding it yourself." Second joke complete, you grin, absorbing how humor cements hard lessons. The practical demonstration begins. Novices blindfolded must align a small raft until the setting star sinks behind a pointed rock. You step forward, blindfold over your eyes, heart leaping like clumsy fish. The ocean breeze tussles your hair, salt sweet. You stretch your hands, groping for the rock marker. A tiny wave laps at your toes, cold enough to wake you from any YouTube binge. Out of the corner of your mind, you recite the rising arc of Aldebaran like a bedtime prayer. You turn your raft towards where you think that orange gem just dipped. Then the blindfold comes off. You've aligned within 10 degrees. Mana claps. The group hoots. That's joke 3, blindfolded, but no trip to Starbucks for a navigation fix. You progress to chanting. Elders recite star chant poems, verses that link clusters to the flavor of ripe breadfruit or the shimmer of fish scales. You mimic the sing-song feeling syllables as paddles carving grooves in memory. This oral tradition preserves star lore and island names. Novices learn to recite dozens of island star pairings before ever touching an oar. A mainstream fact, oral navigation chants form part of UNESCO-recognized intangible cultural heritage in many Pacific nations. Under the gentle slap of waves, you sense the ebb of confidence in your peers. Some recite perfectly, others stumble. Mana roves among you, smiling quietly, then stops to recite a verse for the hardest sections, those diagonal risers that require near impossible estimation. You lean in the verse, for the southern setter begins, "By the silver sheen of Kaena's fall follow, where the sea god calls." You repeat it softly, the words landing on your tongue like coconut flakes. As you practice, an elder whispers that in some remote atoll, novices were required to fast during learning nights, believing hunger sharpened star sight. Fringe, absolutely. It might have been an excuse to avoid cooking taro all night. Between chants, elders recount voyages. One tells how his grandmother navigated through a sudden squall by recalling how Vega aligned with a particular clump of seaweed. Historians still argue whether that anecdote is poetic license or literal. You lean back, imagining a 70-foot voyaging canoe tossed by rogue waves, guided by nothing but memory. Modern sailors in 1976 replicated that route aboard Hokulea, proving living tradition can transcend centuries and temper TikTok illusions of effortless travel across Netflix binges. Your senses sharpen in the teaching ritual, the scent of damp driftwood, the creak of taut sail ropes, and the whisper of an elder's voice weaving facts into stories. You feel your pulse sync with the elder's cadence. Sleepiness tugs at your eyelids, but you force yourself to stay alert because memory is as fleeting as a falling star. You catch the fourth joke yourself. If you start dreaming of Instagram filters on constellations, you've taken a wrong lesson from coconut choir. By midnight, novices move to sea-based practice. Canoes drift offshore lit by dim oil lamps weighed down so as not to disturb starsight. Elders stand at bows, arms folded, each pointing to a cluster as it arcs over a distant swell. You imitate their posture, heart and head aligned. They shout commands. Dial back. That's Rigel, not Betelgeuse, angle your hull west. You feel the hull respond like a startled horse. In this moment, you internalize that a star is not just a pinprick, but a directional command, a note in the ocean symphony. The elders teach you to catch the slight red glow of Betelgeuse, wobbling one misinterpretation, and you're flirting with Antarctic ice, not a tropical atoll. That's the fifth gentle joke. Romantic dinners are for Michelin guides, not star navigation. Dawn approaches, and elders dismiss novices to rest. You lie on the deck, salt drying on your skin, clutching a carved stick chart, a lattice of shells and sticks representing wave patterns and star points as a comfort pillow. You feel the sand and sea oranges fading into milky dawn. The teachings haven't stopped. They've seeped into your bones. The elders' final words echo. The sky is your open textbook. Every night, a new exam. It resonates. Learning is endless, and every voyage tests your recall. As the first pink fingers of sunrise stretch across the horizon, you rise, weariness and wonder intermingling. A day awaits, but you carry the night's lessons, the shell placements, the chants, the rock alignment trick. Each elder's story, each joke, each fringe coconut choir memory lingers in your mind. You realize you're not simply memorizing patterns. You're inheriting lifelines passed down through countless generations. The navigators before you, a lineage as deep as the ocean itself, smiled at nights just like this, teaching novices while waves sang lullabies. You step off the canoe sand, cool underfoot, sun's warmth slowly chasing away the night's hush. You stroke the carved kahoa bowls in your pack, knowing tomorrow you'll be summoned again to partner with elders under their torchlight. Knowledge is a living wave, and you ride it in baby paddles, each stroke a promise to carry this celestial wisdom onward. After all, it's not every day you get to trade screen time for starlight, and that's the greatest loot in any treasure hunt. You rise before dawn, the workshop's cool timber shadows stretching long across the sand floor, and you slip inside where half-finished hulls lie like giant seeds waiting to sprout life. You inhale the faint resinous scent of breadfruit wood, your fingertips tingling as you trace the smooth curve of a hull blank. Today, you become one of the canoe builders, those unsung architects whose art ensures the stars you memorized in chanting sessions actually translate into a seaworthy vessel. No more star lectures. It's time to shape the very vessel that carries your dreams across the open ocean. Your mentor, Kaha Opua, the master builder, stands hunched over a plank the length of your arm span stone adze in hand. The tool's sharp edge glints in the lantern light. No electric saw here, thank goodness. You grin at the notion of someone trying to 3D print a canoe. You'd rather carve by hand than trust an app to auto-calculate your hull curves. That's one joke. Kaha Opua first shows you the full-scale star alignment diagram tacked on the wall. Intersecting lines mark where the prows angle should aim toward Aldebaran at rising, and the stern curve follows the arc of Rigel at setting. Modern engineers call it astro-hydrodynamic hull optimization, but here it's honest wood sweat and an acute sense of the sky. Mainstream fact: traditionally, Polynesian canoes were carved from a single massive log, often breadfruit or koa, using stone adzes and shell gouges, producing vessels up to 70 feet long with remarkable seaworthiness. You heft the adze under Kaha Opua's watchful eye, feeling its surprising weight, and begin to shave off slivers of wood. You focus on removing equal thickness from both sides, checking symmetry with a simple wooden jig tuned to star angles. It's as precise as any modern jigsaw, just less noisy. And no need for a safety harness, thankfully. That's joke two. No hard hat, required only calluses. Halfway through smoothing the keel, Kaha Opua pauses to share a quirky tidbit. Some elder builders once claimed that at the exact moment when the Pleiades swelled to their brightest, the wood's grain would magically realign, making hulls more supple in heavy seas. Fringe, definitely. Scientists scoff at grain-singing timber, and you still remember coconut choir hierarchies from star chants. But there's something poetic in believing wood listens to the sky. Historians still argue whether such stories were mnemonic devices for timing woodworking seasons or literal beliefs held by ancients. You step back and run your hand along the hull's outer curve, recalling how elders had warned you, if your hull doesn't echo the sky's perfect arcs, you'll drift sideways like a confused crab. At this, Kaha Opua chuckles and tells you to imagine the hull smoothing out sea wrinkles like a giant towel. No Tide Pods necessary. Joke 3. You shape the planks until ripples vanish, feeling the vessel take on its final form, sleek, narrow, and gently bowed to mirror the arc of the southern constellations. Next, you shift to lashing the two hulls together. Thick Senate rope-braided coconut fiber awaits in coils. You thread the lashings through pre-drilled holes and cross beams binding the hulls with taut tension. Each lash aligns with a star beam named after the cardinal points. You memorize Kale, the point of sunrise, Ka Hoku, the star point, and Ka Nalu, the wave beam. Mainstream fact: these double-hulled designs offered unmatched stability, allowing canoes to surf swells and navigate trade winds with minimal rolling. As you tighten the Senate, you realize you've become the living embodiment of those chants, your hands mapping coastline memory faster than any GPS at home. Thankfully, no software updates mid-voyage. While you work, Kaha Opua recounts how his great-grandfather carved an outrigger that could carry 40 people, claiming he spoke to the wood under the waning moon to imbue it with sea memory. Fringe come back, some builders even whispered sea chants into the hotwood before felling the tree, believing the wood would then remember its home currents. Scholars still debate whether these practices were standard or isolated eccentricities. Historians still argue whether ritual felling improved seaworthiness or simply reinforced social bonds. When lashing is done, you move to shaping the deck beams and mounting the mast step. The mast must pivot to match wind shifts, but its base angle also lines up with the declination of Sirius during high tide. Kahaopua demonstrates by tilting a small model mast, its shadow falling on a star-marked plank. You mimic the motion, adjusting the angle until the shadow aligns with a painted shell at Betelgeuse's setting point. Imagine you're tucking your mast in for a comfortable starlit nap, he teases. Another joke sneaks in, lightening the heavy work. By midday, you're sweating under the sun-drenched thatch roof, each carved surface calling for final sanding. The hull's surface gleams smooth and organic, ready to breathe with the waves. You step back to admire your handiwork. This canoe is now part star chart, part ocean vessel, entirely lifeline. For you, it carries not only crews, but also the weight of generations who read the sky as you read a novel. That's the fourth callback. Remember tracing those syllables of Kalupe and Kamanu like a bedtime prayer. Now you've carved their guidance into living wood. Before launching the hulls, the community gathers for a blessing ceremony. Torches circle the canoe yard, and elders drape tie leaves over the prow and stern. You join in chanting the invocation learned in nighttime star sessions. By sky's path and ocean's breath, guide this vessel through life and death. The words tumble off your tongue, wrapping the canoe in ancestral energy, no Wi-Fi required for connection. That's your fifth joke. Holistic connectivity beats any cellular plan. Fringe tales emerge. Some say that if the bow carving a whale's tail, in your case, is shaped at the exact hour of Mahialani's zenith, the canoe will outrun any storm. No storm warnings app could promise that. Scientists debate whether such timing had any measurable effect or was merely a ceremonial flourish. Historians still argue whether precision timing was practical or symbolic. Finally, you help lower the canoe into sheltered water. The hull slips in with a gentle splash, ripples echoing like applause. Satisfied smiles pass between you and Kahaopua. Your adze strokes now resonate with cosmic precision. The canoe floats at ease, ready to chase horizons by starlight. You stand at the water's edge, hand resting on the prow's carved whale tail, and feel the vessel's promise. Every voyage begins with a perfect union of human craft and celestial choreography. You step back, savoring the moment. Tomorrow night, you'll paddle under a torchlit sky, testing if your angles hold true. But tonight, you carry the firm conviction that wood and star chart are one living thing. Your work here is as poetic as chanting to the coconut choir, but infinitely more tangible. As you wipe sawdust from your brow, you realize that canoe building isn't just carpentry. It's a conversation with the cosmos, each plank and lashing a word in an age-old dialogue. And when you next sit under that flawless night sky, you'll know that every star you memorize is mirrored in the hull, cradling your voyage. You slip into the cradle of your double-hulled canoe as twilight deepens, the hull pressing gently against a ribbon of water that glows under starlight. You sense the night's breath shifting as currents whisper beneath your fingertips. Tiny ripples skating sideways, hinting at distant reefs and channels. The sky still beckons every star a steadfast guide, but tonight you tune your senses to the ocean's hidden highways, feeling its pulses as keenly as any constellation. The salt-scented air fills your lungs, and the gentle lull of swells becomes your lullaby. You trace the faint tug of a warmer stream on your right side, imagining a river of liquid honey flowing beneath the night. This is the world of veiled currents, the silent partners of your star compass, shaping each voyage's fate. Your elders once told you currents speak in subtle nudges, not roars, and you practice listening. As you border the hull with your hand, you feel the water's temperature shift, a thin band of chill where an undercurrent slips past. You tilt the hull slightly into that flow, adjusting your course by centimeters rather than degrees. If you thought your bathtub's drain swirl was dramatic, wait till you feel the equatorial countercurrent tuck your hull like a cranky toddler. That's joke one right there. This is ocean reading at its purest. No gadgets, no maps, just you and the moving sea, gently arguing over who gets the final say. Elders have names for each major conveyor belt of water you meet. The North Equatorial Current, a steady westward stream hugging the trade winds, pushes beneath your bow, speeding your progress toward far-flung atolls. Mainstream fact Polynesian navigators recognized and used the North Equatorial and South Equatorial currents long before European contact, often timing departures to catch these lifelines. Mainstream fact. To their navigational charts, they were all mental. Of course, they added the equatorial countercurrents, subtle eastward tug, a backflow nestled between the twins. You recall carving those lines into coconut boards back on shore, but here, under stars, you feel each one instead of reading them. A fringed tidbit floats up from the elders' lore. Some claimed they could hear the hum of a current against the hull as a low droning melody, an ocean's heartbeat only true navigators discerned. Scientists scoff at such claims, but you tuck that story into your memory alongside tales of singing palms and coconut choir rehearsals. Historians still argue whether these audible currents were literal phenomena or poetic teaching tools meant to anchor star lore in the learner's imagination. Meanwhile, you grin at the notion that the sea might be humming karaoke, no Spotify subscription required. That's joke two for the night. To keep a steady heading, you fuse star and current reading seamlessly. When Aldebaran dips toward the southeast, you note the push of the South Equatorial current on your port hull, and compensate by yawing the canoe's prow slightly northward. You watch for floating flotsam, broken branches, tangled kelp, tiny island debris, drifting in streaks that trace the invisible waterway. Know that drifting kelp isn't a new Michelin star restaurant. It's your ocean snack bar, telling you where the North Equatorial current runs. That's joke three. You nudge the paddle, feeling the current's gentle pressure become your silent partner, adjusting speed and direction without a word. Seasonal shifts rearrange this watery tapestry. During winter months, the currents swell differently, sometimes reversing close to shore when monsoon winds shift. You memorize patterns by weaving them into chants. When Tiger Star climbs, first light, drift on eastward wave tonight. Mainstream fact: Polynesian mariners aligned voyages with seasonal current changes, timing departures, so that currents and trade winds conspired to carry them toward target islands. You recall your matriarch's warning that a misread current could send you spiraling into open ocean, chasing horizons as futilely as a teenager chasing internet fame. Elders still debate some practices. Historians still argue whether novices use simple floating markers, small gourds tethered to lines to calibrate currents before nightfall, or relied purely on temperature and flotsam clues. You practice both dangling a tiny shell tied with pandanus fiber into the sea and feeling its drag point toward the hidden stream. That little shell swirls and slides, confirming the current's direction faster than any watch or gauge could measure. You smile, realizing that these humble floats were both practical tools and mnemonic aids bridging fringe ritual and hard-won knowledge. By now the canoe feels alive beneath you, a dynamic vessel in constant dialogue with sky and sea. You lean back, closing your eyes for a moment, lulled by the seamless symphony of starlight and water. The currents, once mysterious, have become trusted guides, as reliable as the Southern Cross. As you drift onward, you imagine ancient voyagers slipping through identical pathways, their chants echoing in the hull's grain. You remember carving those hull curves to match starlight arcs, every plank lashing and chant uniting into one living map. In the hush of the night, you feel the ocean's breath, each current's pull affirming that you are never alone on these voyages. The sea and sky conspire to guide you home. You lean into the whispering rush of the northeast trade winds, feeling each breath of air press against the taut canvas of your sail. The wind glides over the mast, sighing like a hush between old friends, carrying the faint scent of salt and distant rain on its back. You close your eyes for a moment and imagine the sails themselves humming an intimate lull of fabric and wind weaving together, guiding your canoe toward the next star-marked waypoint. It's as if the very atmosphere conspires with your star compass, each gust reinforcing the curve you carved into the hullback. Onshore callback to Section 3, no Wi-Fi signal could ever deliver this level of seamless connectivity. Joke 1, there's no wind advisory app for this, just raw, unsponsored nature whispering sweet directions. Your hands dance across the sheet lines, easing the sail to catch the perfect angle. You remember the elder's words, read the wind like a second star. Mainstream fact: Polynesian navigators timed departures from Tahiti to coincide with the reliable northeast trade winds, using those steady breezes to propel double-hulled canoes thousands of miles across open ocean. As you feel the wind's pulse align with the rise of Pleiades recalled from your nightly chants, you sense the path to the Society Islands unfurl before you. Historians still argue whether the same wind patterns held true year-round or shifted enough seasonally. That voyages required constant recalibration. But for you, the breeze tonight feels unwavering, as if affirming your chosen route. A fringe tidbit drifts through memory. Some ancient sailors claimed the wind spoke in ancestral voices, channeling the wisdom of former navigators through the rustle of coconut fronds and the tatter of sails. They swore they heard faint names in the gusts. Makali'i, Pawehe, Hokupa, like a ghostly choir beyond the coconut choir you learned about. Callback to sections 1 and 2. Scholars scoff at wind whisper narratives, but you tuck the idea away with a smile, knowing that sometimes you need a little enchantment to steady the mind when black waves roll beneath a starry vault. Joke 2. If your sail starts humming a catchy tune, you might just be overdue for karaoke night with the sea. You scan the horizon, matching wind direction to the curve of star lines imprinted in your mind. The sail's boom creaks as you shift it a few inches, angling toward Calais' rising point, where Magrez glows faintly above the swell. You feel the canoe respond slipperier and faster, slice it through the silver-black undulations like a blade. Once elders had you practice sail trimming by tacking between 2 coconut palms on shore. Imagine beach volleyball, but with sails and zero ball. Joke 3. That exercise taught you to anticipate wind shifts, and tonight you anticipate like a chess grandmaster, foreseeing moves 3 steps ahead. The trade winds aren't monolithic. You sense the slight veer where the monsoon trough dips south, a subtle lull in pressure that hints at doldrum-like conditions. You pull a small gourd float behind the canoe, quiet homage to those shell-tether currents, watching its drag wobble under the hull's lee. When the float swings northwest, you know you've entered a wind pocket that requires feathering your sail to avoid a dead zone. Mainstream fact navigators use simple sea markers, driftwood floating flowers, even inkfish as real-time indicators of wind shifts before relying fully on star maps. Historians still argue whether gourds or feathered wands were more common as tactile wind gauges, but you like the gourds. They double as mid-voyage snack bowls if you're really hungry. You settle into a rhythm star position, wind whisper hull, angle repeat. The breeze carries onshore murmurs, bird calls from unseen islands, and the occasional slap of wave against hull. A fringe belief holds that if you drift off listening too intently, the wind might carry you toward a reef ghost, an underwater spirit said to toy with lost sailors. You chuckle at the thought, nudging the sail tighter. Fear of ghosts has never steered a canoe true, but it sure makes for lively campfire stories. Joke 4, at least ghost stories come with free special effects. As the night deepens, the wind strengthens, turning from soft murmur to confident roar. You lean into the sheet, trusting the interplay between breeze and star arc. You recall carving those Kanalu lashings to withstand just this force callback to section 3, and feel pride swell. The sail bulges, then stabilizes, and you sense the canoe's speed doubling as it surfs a crest. In that surge, you glimpse the hunter's moon rising behind the mast, a pale lantern ushering you closer to your destination. Mainstream fact: many voyages time their perigee departures with lunar cycles to leverage higher tides and steadier winds, maximizing efficiency across unsettled seas. A scholarly debate stirs in your mind. Historians still argue whether lunar timing or star-based latitude held primacy in ancient Polynesian sailing calendars. You shrug. On this deck, you trust both. You sing a soft verse your grandmother taught. When moonlight dances on the crest point, your prow eastward head to rest, weaving star lore and wind songs into one seamless chant. That melody feels like a whispered partnership between sky, sea, and vessel. You pause to feel the wind's final embrace before a predicted shift. A gentle exhalation of air signals an impending change. Wind models they had. Were your senses honed through nights like this? You ease the sails accordingly, preventing an awkward jibe that could slap the boom across your head. Joke 5. Nothing like a rogue boom swing to remind you this isn't yoga class. Safe sail handling keeps you lucid, preventing unwanted wake-up calls or wake-up slaps while drifting toward slumber. With wind and stars aligned, you close your eyes, briefly lulled by the pulsing blend of gust and glow. The whispering winds have guided your course, flawlessly merging ancient star compasses with raw atmospheric poetry. You rest your head on the cool deck, the wind's gentle pressure rocking you as steadily as any lullaby. In this dance of wind and starlight, you remember that navigation is never solely about seeing. It's about feeling, listening, and trusting the invisible threads that bind ocean and sky together. You lean over the side of your canoe, watching the night sky shimmer through a veil of drifting cirrus clouds, and you realize that weather is as much a navigation partner as any star. The sky's tapestry folds and unfolds with invisible currents of humidity, temperature, and wind shear. You feel the slight coolness on your cheek as a breeze carries distant rain salt and fresh water, intermingling like old friends. Each cloud bank holds a clue. The puffy cotton of cumulus along the horizon hints at landmass convection, while wispy streaks warn of high-altitude turbulence ahead. It's as if the heavens are breathing on your face, reminding you that the ocean isn't a static mirror, but a living, weather-sculpted world. This is the night's climate, where meteorology and astronomy twine their arms around your voyage. You recall how in Section 4, you felt the gentle tug of veiled currents. Tonight, you decode shifting cloud patches instead. Mainstream fact. Polynesian navigators observed that certain cloud types gather over islands. Cumulus clouds often form above atolls, marking hidden land masses by day, and their residual glow by moonlight could be spotted at sea. Mainstream fact. As you stare upward, you note a low flattened deck of stratocumulus hugging the horizon to starboard. You angle your prow toward a gap where the clouds break, hoping it marks the windward side of a reef. Joke 1. If you rely on a weather app, you'll end up ghosted by both stars and shore. You sniff the air for dew patterns. Moisture on your eyelashes tells you the air is cooling rapidly, increasing the chance of clear skies later. Elders taught you to sense humidity by holding a strip of pandanus leaf in your tea. If it sticks fast, tonight's sky will clear for stellar sightings. Fringe tidbit: some claim that if the leaf cracked upon tasting dew, you'd soon witness a meteor shower so bright it could outshine Pleiades, an oral tradition that sounds like exaggerated travel blogger hype, but you tuck it into memory alongside tales of singing palms and wind whisper choirs call back to sections 1 and 2. Historians still argue whether dew leaf tests were widespread or isolated tribal rituals, but you smile at the idea of using kitchen tools for climate forecasts. A thin haze blurs Orion's belt, its 3 stars like smeared pearls across satin. You tilt your head, waiting for the sky to drop from that veil. While you wait, you feel the warmth of latent heat rising from the ocean's surface, a subtle reminder that tropical nights never truly cool. The rising heat sometimes mimics starlight on the horizon, making distant islands seem to shimmer, if only for a heartbeat. Joke 2. It's like nature's version of a bad Photoshop filter, no subscription required, but infinitely less reliable. You reach for your lacquered wooden telltale, a feather tied to a short line that flutters in response to local wind shear. By watching its tremor, you can infer upper air currents that might carry clouds in unpredictable ways. Mainstream fact navigators use telltales and feathered wind gauges to anticipate weather shifts when crossing the intertropical convergence zone, avoiding sudden squalls that could swamp a canoe mainstream fact. You watch the feather quiver, indicating a gentle veer to the northwest, and you adjust your sail angle to slip under an approaching band of nimbostratus. No sudden squall surprises tonight. Joke 3. If that feather starts singing sea shanties, you might want to retire from navigation. Moonless nights pose a harder test. Without lunar glow, cloud cover becomes invisible until it's too late, but your eyes adapt, tracing star patterns through thin patches. A swell heightens slightly as offshore clouds gather. You feel each rise and fall of the hull, reading wave shape to predict the wind's arrival. Fringe belief: some navigators swore that when a rare silver cloud formed a thin veil catching planetary light, you could hear distant lightning storms as a low rumble precursor to tropical downpours. Scientists regard it as myth, but you remember hearing what you thought was thunder in the distance one night, only to find a pod of melon-headed whales cavorting. Historians still argue whether silver clouds reflect upper tropospheric phenomena or were poetic metaphors for cloud rarities. As you navigate between clouds and stars, you remember carving the deck beams to match stellar arcs. Callback to Section 3. Now you see why precise hull curvature mattered. A misaligned deck can trap wind eddies, distorting telltale readings and making cloud movement misleading. The canoe's shape isn't just for slicing waves, it's also an onboard weather station, translating shift in air pressure into tangible signals. You tuck that thought into your mind like a paragraph in a meteorology manual, minus the jargon. Halfway across the sea, you notice a sudden drop in temperature. The telltale stops quivering, the dew test leaf loosens in your mouth, and distant clouds grow a silvery edge from starlight refraction. It's the sign of an approaching trade wind inversion, a layer where wind direction shifts dramatically. You ease the sail, letting the hull slow until you're back in calm waters beneath less cloud cover. The stars reappear crisp and welcoming. Vega's bright flare cuts through the gloom, and you steer by its light once more. Mainstream fact: Polynesian mariners understood that atmospheric inversions impacted both star visibility and sailing conditions, timing voyages to avoid high cloud seasons. Mainstream fact: you settle at the helm, feeling the night's climate shift into a stable zone. A soft drizzle begins, tiny droplets that patter like gentle applause on the deck. You pull your rain mat over your legs, smiling at the unexpected shower. Elders once joked that rain under a clear sky means your canoe is blessed by the rain goddess, and omen of safe harbor ahead. Fringe anecdote: some believed raindrops on the hull created musical notes you could interpret as cryptic messages. 2 taps meant land in 3 days. 4 taps meant storm. You shake your head amused if raindrops ever start dancing. You'll know they're practicing for a meteorological dance-off. Historians still argue whether raindrop patterns held any practical use or were simply playful traditions to lighten tense nights. Through the drizzle, you peer at the sky. The Milky Way's cloudy band emerges brighter, where clouds part a cosmic river, guiding you. You recall from Section 1 how the Southern Cross once felt as personal as a whispered promise. Tonight, it emerges like a friend shaking off a damp cloak. You steer toward its bright end, confident that cloud or rain won't deter your cosmic guidance. Joke 4. Not even a tropical shower can ruin a star party when you have VIP passes. As the rain eases, the air grows still and crystalline. You trace Cassiopeia's W overhead, a quick reference you used in childhood chants, and find comfort in its familiar zigzag. Your canoe drifts in a mosaic of clear patches and misty veils like an impressionist painting come to life. This interplay between weather and stars teaches you humility. Nature's unpredictability humbles even the most skilled navigator, reminding you that the ocean's whims are as changeable as a YouTube trending algorithm. Joke 5. At least the algorithm mistakes won't sink your canoe. You slide lower into the hull, letting the dampness seep through your skirt while the sky resets itself. Clouds break into tiny islands of clarity, each revealing a different constellation, urging you to update your star compass on the fly. You think of canoe builders carving beams to match arc shapes. Now you adjust your mental map beam by beam, section by section, cloud bank by cloud bank. There's artistry in this, a dance of adaptation, a testament to human ingenuity in the face of shifting skies. Your final test arrives when a thin veil of mist drips across the hull. Visibility collapses to a few feet. Stars vanish. You reach for the carved lashing handles, tactile markers guiding your grip, and feel for the prow's carved whale tail still pointing true south. You close your eyes and trust muscle memory, the ocean's pulse, and the canoe's hidden weather station. A chorus of raindrops taps on the deck in no discernible pattern, but you know that after the storm, the clouds will part and stars will guide you again. That moment of blind trust where weather obscures all cements your mastery, you navigate by feel, by sound, by the rhyme of deck handles under your palms. In that darkness, the night's climate becomes a silent guide, conjoining weather lore and star lore into one seamless navigation art. You slip onto the deck as night deepens, the warm planks prickling your palms with tacky resin. Ahead, a line of novices hums under a single torch's glow. Your turn now to learn the memory islands, chant the melodic map that strings atolls together like pearls on a necklace. You remember how in Section 2 you recited star chant poems for clusters. Tonight, those verses expand to include island names, each paired with a stellar cue that guides you across vast swells. You feel the torch's heat on your cheek, catch the scent of toasted breadfruit leaf in the air, and brace for your mind to flood with mnemonic magic. An elder stands before you, chanted syllables rolling off her tongue like smooth river stones. Laehonu rises with Kalupe. Huamoku sets by Kamanu. Mauloa swings neath Pawehi's glow. Your first task is to echo each island star pairing voice low and steady. Mainstream fact Polynesian navigators used oral mnemonic chants linking specific stars to island sequences, memorizing hundreds of miles of open ocean bearings without written maps. You repeat after her each island name a footstep on your mental path, Le Honu Hua Moku Mauloa. You feel your heartbeat sink to the chant's rhythm as though the ocean itself drapes you in mnemonic warmth. A fringed tidbit surfaces when an elder whispers that some masters added a tiny conch shell rattle at each stanza's end. The rattles were said to sing when you neared the corresponding island's waters. Scientists eye it skeptically, but you tuck that notion alongside coconut choir lore from Section 1. Joke 1. If your chant ever literally sings back, you'll know it's bugged by a ghost navigator. No ghost hunting equipment required. You close your eyes, letting the chant's rhythm paint your inner horizon. The torch's flicker morphs into wave patterns, each syllable a crest pointing toward a hidden atoll. You savor how each verse ends in an ascension of tone that matches the star's rising arc. Ancient karaoke for those who can't read a screen. When you stumble over Huamoku, your neighbor teases you with a gentle nudge. Watch it, or you'll end up at the wrong island. Hope you packed extra sunscreen. That's joke 2, and you grin despite your tongue-tied stumble. The chant weaves geography and astronomy seamlessly. You imagine Lehonu Turtles Point as the first green smudge on your mental map, appearing where Vega kisses the horizon. Then comes Huamoku land of breadfruit lying due west when Altair dips low. With each line you feel a gentle shiver. These words are more than melodies, they're lifelines etched in memory. Historians still argue whether the chants varied by island chain or formed a universal pan-Polynesian codex. But you know that tonight's version suits your canoe's prow. As the chant reaches its midpoint, elders layer in subtle variations. A low drum beat accompanies sections for smaller islets, while conch calls punctuate major atolls. You pick up a small pahu drum, its hollow wood warmed by the torch. When you tap it in time, the chant deepens, the sound echoing off the hull's curvature, a callback to Section 3's carved arcs. You feel the boat resonate with your rhythm as though the canoe itself approves your mastery. Joke 3. It's the only time your drum practice doubles as navigation rehearsal, no metronome app needed. Between stanzas, you sip coconut water from a carved gourd, its cool sweetness washing down the chant's salinity. You dip a finger in the foam and trace star positions on the hull's deck, marking grooves where the chants align physically with the boat's structure. Elders explain that the hull beams were sometimes carved with tiny notches corresponding to island chant segments, creating a tactile star chart you could feel in pitch darkness. Mainstream fact physical stick charts and shell-inlaid boards complemented oral mnemonic systems, reinforcing star island associations through touch. You run your finger over a notch at the prow Lehonu's mark and imagine the island's palm-fringed shore cresting the sea mist. As the chant swells toward its final verses, a thin cloud drifts overhead, dimming Cassiopeia's Bakri, your cue to shift into the chant's cloud-proof lines taught to novices for nights when stars disappear. You recite the alternate version, Lehonu, by Turtles Hum, Huamoku, when fronds go numb. It's a playful rhyme, intentionally absurd, yet life-saving when stars vanish. Fringe scholars debate whether these cloud chants rose from necessity or were humorous mnemonic aids. Scholars still argue whether they originated on raiding voyages or in peaceful ceremonial contexts. Your neighbor fumbles the arcane rhyme, and you can't help but laugh your third joke slipping out in this sacred ritual. Elders hush you with affectionate grins. Humor is part of the teaching. A subtle reminder that laughter cements memory as firmly as repetition. You breathe in deep tasting salt and pandanus smoke and commit the final island sequence to memory Maoloa under Pauehai's glow. Nui Pani, where breezes blow. Manukai, when night winds slow. Then the elders challenge you to perform the chant without falling off the canoe as it rocks in a gentle swell. You lean forward, balancing on the central beam torchlight, flickering in the hull's polish. Each word must come without hesitation, each island name invoked precisely. You begin Le Honu, Hua Moku, Maoloa. The sea rocks you wobble, but your voice holds steady. At Manukai, you deliver the final note in perfect pitch, and the canoe writes itself, proof positive you've internalized the sequence. The group erupts in quiet applause, and you feel a surge of pride warm your chest. Elders then explain how in times of need, navigators would adjust the chant's tempo to reflect real-time conditions. A faster beat for tailwinds, a slower draw when currents were fickle. It's a dynamic system, not a rigid songbook. Mainstream fact oral navigation chants were living traditions adapted seasonally and regionally to mirror both environmental patterns and social customs. You nod, imagining how future generations might remix these chants for new island-hopping routes. TikTok navigation tutorials, anyone? That's joke 4. With your chant performance complete, elders gift you a small pandanus-wrapped packet containing scented wood shavings, your personal mnemonic to carry on voyages. A single whiff is said to trigger the chant instantly. Fringe lore insists these shavings faintly smell of the destination island when you near land. Historians still argue whether this was psychological suggestion or an olfactory anomaly. You tuck the packet into your sash, grateful for both its practicality and its poetry. You settle back on the deck, the chant's last echoes dissipating into the swell's hush. The torch glimmers low now, and the chant's melody hums in your mind, a continuous loop linking island to star to hull. You lean your head on the prow's carved whale tail, your tactile reminder of true south feeling. The chant's final vibrations settle in your bones. The sea around you feels intimately mapped, each island a familiar landmark in your mind's eye, each star a milestone on your journey. As you close your eyes, you recall the chant's melody blending with the distant call of a frigate bird, the torch's sputter, and the hull's creak. The Memory Island's chant has turned the ocean into a stitched quilt, each patch sewn with syllables and starlight. You imagine drifting through this stitched sea, island after island, unfolding in your mind's horizon, guided by an ancient song that courses through your veins. And as sleep tugs at your eyelids, you hum the chant, softly confident that no matter how far you wander, each island will always be just a star-aligned verse away. You lean back against the canoe's deck beam, lifting your gaze to the starlit vault overhead and feeling the cool spray of salt on your cheeks. No brass compass glints in your hand, no mechanical quadrant to hold your sight in place, just the naked eye wonder of thousands of pinpoints winking in the night. This is frameless navigation, trusting your eyes, your memory, and your body's built-in map, free from metal frames or digital overlays. The air hums with anticipation as you flex your neck to trace the arc of the Milky Way, imagining each star as an anchor point in your mind. There's no navigation widget on your phone, just you, the sky, and a centuries-old tradition that beats any gadget's battery life. Joke 1. If you tried to swipe right on a star, you'd only end up with a face palm on your palm. Your mind drifts back to when European explorers first arrived, brass instruments in hand, convinced they'd charted every ocean. They marveled at your voyages, yet shook their heads at your superstitious reliance on star arrays instead of astrolabes. Mainstream fact, early 19th century records from Captain William Bligh's journals noted that Polynesian navigators crossed thousands of miles with only their eyes and chants, no charts, no compasses, decades before Western charts even hinted at such precision. While Cook's maps redrew the Pacific, you already owned the sky's blueprint. Joke 2. Those oak timber ships would have capsized if they tried to run on solar power like you. The fringed tidbit you tuck into your mental logbook is a story passed down by whispersome master navigators supposedly trained so long at night that they claimed to feel stars as tiny cold pricks on their tongue, an odd sensory trick they called taste tracking. Scientists today dismiss it as synesthetic rumor, but you picture yourself licking the air waiting for Orion's belt to drop by with a hint of starlight brine. Historians still argue whether taste tracking was an ingenious mnemonic device or a cheeky exaggeration shared over strong kava. In the absence of physical frames or sighting devices, you learned to build a mental horizon board, the sky meets sea, as an invisible line in your mind, and each star's altitude is gauged by the angle between that line and its ascent. You rotate your head lining up the crest of a wave with the downward dip of Antares to mark latitude, and no horizon app could mimic that subtle calibration. Historians still argue whether these mental frameworks were taught through songful-led instruction or by solo voyages where novices charted their own mistakes. But you know that your first hurled into the open sea test taught you more than any classroom. Without instruments, you engage every sense. Your eyes track star drift, your ears note the hush of waves changing tack, and your spine recalls the hull's keel curvature, etched to mirror stellar arcs. Call back to Section 3. You remember the carved notches on deck beams that matched star chant segments, Section 7, reinforcing each celestial line under your fingertips in the pitch dark. It's a full-body experience, like dancing on a tightrope where the sky's choreography leads each step. Joke 3. Unlike your morning commute, where you need GPS to avoid potholes here, you're surfing invisible charts drawn across the cosmos. Modern sailors peer through binoculars cross-referencing radar blips against digital waypoints. You, by contrast, peer with unfiltered vision, letting starlight paint the ocean in high-definition clarity. Mainstream fact ethnographers in the early 20th century documented that Polynesian navigators could identify over 30 different star courses with naked eyes, often recalling each exact rising and setting azimuth without error. No sextant check required. You imagine their pride? No glass lenses, no calibration necessary. Of course, naked eye navigation has its critics. Some say you're flirting with disaster when clouds roll in or the moon's glare washes out fainter stars. Scholars still argue whether navigators carried rudimentary sighting poles, wooden staffs they'd raise against the horizon to standardize their vision, or relied purely on memory and feel. You've tried both. Balancing a peeled branch on your fingertip feels about as high-tech as carving a tiki in your sleep. But when the sky clears, your eyes are the only frame you need. You recall the nights you practiced star arcs on shore, carving each trajectory into coconut boards under a lantern's soft glow. No digital projector could replicate that warm amber light or the sound of your adze shaving wood to match stellar curves. Later at sea, you'd glance at the hull's bow, carving its whale-tailed prow aligned precisely to Manooku's rising point to anchor each measurement. This intimate coupling of boat design and naked eye sighting yields a unity no instrument can deliver, a seamless marriage of human skill and natural order. As the hours stretch on, you drift into a trance where the horizon line and the star map merge into one. Your vision softens. The sky's mosaic becomes an overhead compass, rose each star's glow pulsing in your veins. You breathe in sync with cosmic rotations, trusting your senses rather than checking a screen. A gentle wake nudges your shoulder, reminding you that you're alive, moving part of an ancient lineage that mastered frameless navigation long before any gadget dreamed of orbiting Earth. Before you drift fully toward sleep, you muse on how this skill sets you apart. No battery drain, no signal loss, just pure unadulterated observation. As you close your eyes, you see constellations inscribed across your eyelids, an ever-present map guiding your dream. And in that quiet surrender, you know you've outgrown the need for metal frames or digital quick fixes. Your eyes, your memory, and your crafted canoe are more than enough to carry you home. You sit at the stern as the horizon melts into a bruised purple dusk, watching the sea's edge dissolve beneath gathering storms. A low growl of thunder echoes across the swell, and you feel that familiar edge of exhilaration and dread. You're approaching the perceived limits of your star paths, where familiar constellations sink too close to the horizon to guide you reliably. The canoe's hull hums beneath you, a callback to Section 3's carved curves, but tonight it feels fragile, poised between ordered navigation and chaotic ocean. A stray gust rattles the mast, and you realize how little separates a steady voyage from disaster when you push beyond well-trodden routes. A line of dark clouds races overhead, lit from within by flashing forked lightning. You recall how elders warned of rogue squalls that form at the confluence of conflicting winds, and currents, danger zones they dubbed the wind's teeth. Mainstream fact historical accounts record that Polynesian canoes sometimes encountered deadly storms near the equatorial convergence, capsizing vessels even seasoned navigators couldn't outrun. You grip the rail, adrenaline spiking, as rain begins to patter like a heavy drumbeat on the sail. You mutter your first joke. If your umbrella app says sunny, you're about to get a free shower. Your eyes flick to the lowest stars fighting to remain visible through the drizzle. You remember Section 8's frameless navigation, trusting naked eye sighting. But here the horizon board vanishes under gray swirls. You lean forward, peering for any break in the cloud veil that might reveal Aldebaran or the Southern Cross. Fringe stories whisper that some navigators used a thin slit of blown glass to cut through overcast layers and improvised sighting viewfinder. Scientists scoff at such improvised optics, calling it myth, but you tuck it alongside coconut choir lore. Historians still argue whether these glass fragments were genuine tools or sailors' tall tales spun around campfires. The wind shifts carrying a briny tang mixed with a faint sweetness, sweet potato fragrance, elders said, drifting from distant islands. It sparks a hushed debate. Did your ancestors reach South America before Europeans? Mainstream fact, by the 13th century Polynesians had spread sweet potato kumara across the Pacific centuries before Columbus sailed, proving remarkable voyaging skill. Fringe proponents suggest full expeditions reached Chile, trading with indigenous peoples, a narrative some find compelling, others dismiss as retrofitted evidence. Historians still argue whether gene flow or drift explains the Kumara's presence on both shores. You chuckle. If you traded farm tools for fish hooks, at least you'd have a good barter story. You ease the canoe through choppy seas, mindful of coral reefs hidden just beneath the surface. At full speed, a mistimed swell could slam you into razor-sharp bommies. You recall your grandparents' cautionary tale from Section 4. A novice, once guided by water temperature alone, struck a reef at midnight, scrubbing the hull raw. Joke 2. If your GPS navigator suggests recalculating, you know you're in trouble. You maneuver with feather-light paddle strokes, feeling for subtle changes in wave texture, a tactic passed down in star circle sessions under torchlight. As darkness thickens, you lose sight of all but the brightest stars. You recite the Memory Island's chant under your breath. Section 7, hoping its alternate cloud lines will steer you away from danger. You imagine that chanting faster might repel the clouds, though elders never recommended karaoke as a storm-proof strategy. Fringe lore holds that some navigators carried small fire-driven flares to clear localized fog, a pyrotechnic remedy more circus trick than genuine method. Historians still argue whether flares were ceremonial signals or practical aids. You grin. If you lean too heavily on pyrotechnics, you might cook your dinner by accident. A sudden swell lifts the canoe's bow, and you gaze westward toward a phantom glow on the horizon. Bioluminescent plankton stirred by undersea ridges. It could mark land or simply reflect an upwelling current. You sense a thrill in that uncertainty, but also the precarious weight of decision. Follow the glow and risk shallow reefs, or veer starward and risk squalls. Mainstream fact, Polynesian navigators used nighttime watercolor and phosphorescence as secondary cues for island proximity. Fringe assertion, some claimed navigators could taste the plankton's bioluminescent bloom on their tongues, guiding them like cosmic lollipops. Historians still argue whether such tasting rituals were genuine navigation techniques or sea story embellishments. Your pulse steadies as you recall Section 6's climate cues, shifts in humidity cloud types, and even dew leaf tests. You pull a pandanus leaf from your sash, wet it with saliva, and feel it tug between your teeth, signaling the air will clear soon. You exhale, tasting salt and coconut fibers, and promise yourself a second joke. If your weather app reads leaf dry, it's time to trust ancient tech over modern. As the leaf loosens, you sense the clouds parting, revealing Vega's lone flame. Your universe contracts to that single point of light, re-anchoring your star compass. Relief washes over you as the clear sky returns. You realign to Paueha in the north, adjusting course by a few degrees to compensate for drift callback to Section 1's star compass arcs. You exhale, heart still racing, marveling at the razor's edge between triumphant navigation and peril. You whisper the navigator's credo: push horizons, but respect their edge. Those limits are as instructive as any chart. They map not only where you can go, but where you must never stray unprepared. And as you guide your canoe back into familiar star lanes, you feel the full measure of skill required to dance on the Pacific's challenging horizons. You glide through dawn's first pale glow, the hull's whale-tail prow slicing small silver crescents through glassy water, and you feel a quiet pang as you recall the voices of elders now silenced. Colonial sails once darkened these same horizons, bearing missionaries and merchants who couldn't fathom your star compasses. In their wake, navigational chants were outlawed, stick charts burned, and canoe yards fell silent. You taste salt on your tongue and wonder how a lifetime of celestial wisdom could be scattered like driftwood on an alien shore. This is lost knowledge, the dark turn, when your ancestors' intimate map of sky and sea was fractured by foreign edicts. In these waters, in the late 18th and early 19th centuries, Western powers imposed new civilized norms. Mainstream fact early missionaries in Hawaii and Samoa forbade indigenous navigation practices, deeming them pagan, resulting in the near-total loss of starpath lore by the mid-1800s. Your voice might have carried chants across lagoons, but those voices were replaced with hymns sung in English no coconut choir allowed. Historians still argue whether the suppression was deliberate cultural erasure or an unintended consequence of religious fervor. But for you, seeing empty canoe yards dredges up a hollow ache. You imagine elders huddled under hiding canopies passing secret verses by whispered candlelight, akin to a rebellion of syllables. Fringe accounts speak of clandestine tattoo societies where navigators inked star maps onto young skin, preserving roots and flesh. These skin charts supposedly contained hidden constellations visible only under torchlight, a body map of the ocean. Scholars scoff that burnt tattoo pigments could never endure, yet you picture those hidden constellations glowing softly on ancestral arms. Historians still argue whether such tattoo maps were widespread or merely sailor folklore. But the idea stirs your imagination. What if your next voyage began with tracing constellations on someone's forearm? You paddle past a ghost-white church on a palm-dotted shore, its steeple more towering than any mast you've carved. You sense how mission schools replace star lessons with arithmetic and scripture, the chants fading into church choirs singing Amazing Grace. Joke one flickers. If those choirs had learned to chant star paths, instead, Sunday services might have ended with a free canoe ride home. But instead, you witness local canoe builders forced to work European-style shipyards. No adze shaving by starlight anymore, only iron rivets and steam. In the museum calm of urban centers, you've seen fractured stick charts encased in glass wooden struts, snapped like broken wings, cowrie shells missing from key points. You run your finger along the polished case, imagining the fires that once consumed these sacred tools. Mainstream fact many stick charts collected by ethnographers in the 19th century were bartered under duress, their makers coerced or impoverished, severing oral teaching lineages. Historians still argue whether those early collectors acted as preservationists or profiteers. But you feel the weight of each missing shell as a stolen chapter of your past. As you drift further from the shore, you reflect on how colonial sugar plantations consumed land once reserved for canoe trees. Breadfruit groves and coal forests fell to make way for monocultures. Fringe lore claims that some master navigators secreted canoe logs within sacred groves, where missionary maps marked them as unused bush. You chuckle if those logs sprouted into ghost canoes at night. That'd be a sight worthy of a Netflix series, no CGI needed. Scholars still argue whether hidden groves ever existed, or if they're simply tall tales whispered in the wind. Your paddle strokes become a heartbeat, each dip and rise echoing a chant lost from living memory. You remember Section 2's elders carving star compasses into coconut boards, boards now displayed in distant capitals rather than guiding voyages. Those teaching nights on the beach, when shells clicked into place marking star lines, feel like a dream you woke from too soon. You murmur the opening verse of your favorite chant under your breath, its melody bittersweet in your ears. You've no audience now, but the gulls circling overhead, calling you back to vanished traditions. Halfway across the channel, you receive a sudden gust, a taunting reminder of how trade winds once carried missionaries as surely as they carried explorers. They introduced metal charts and sextants claiming accuracy, yet those tools need windless days and clear skies to function. Joke 2. No sextant could measure the irony of replacing a living chart with cold brass that corrodes. You lean into the gust, trusting your battered star compass that no longer has live tutors to validate each angle. You recall whispered revival efforts in the 20th century. A handful of elders risked fines to teach small groups on hidden atolls using surrogate stick charts drawn in sand. A mainstream fact by the 1970s figures like Maupiai from the Micronesian island of Satawal began sharing star path secrets with Hawaiians, catalyzing the Polynesian Voyaging Society's revival of Hokulea. Historians still argue whether this revival accurately reconstructed pre-colonial methods or introduced modern reinterpretations. But you feel that spark of hope knowledge once scattered is slowly coalescing again. You imagine yourself among that revival crew chanting under a new moon as younger navigators listen wide-eyed. Fringe whispers say Piailug used hidden palm scrolls to guide his lessons, scrolls never seen by Western scholars containing lost stanzas of island chants. You grin. If palm scroll pirates existed, they'd have the best library card in Oceania. Scholars still argue whether such scrolls were real or symbolic references to oral lore. Yet you hold faith that even if the physical scripts vanished, their essence remains in each practiced chant. The lost knowledge isn't just about stars. It's the loss of canoe building, too. You recall Section 3, chipping away at breadfruit logs under lantern light, but many master builders passed away without apprentices. Plantation economies and urban migration lured young people away. Mainstream fact by the early 20th century, large-scale canoe production had halted in many islands replaced by motorized launches. Historians still argue whether motorboats were a boon or a curse to cultural preservation. But your heart aches as you trace the worn grain of a museum canoe, once seaworthy, now moored to a pedestal. You listen to the Hull Creek beneath you, reminding you of the ocean's persistence despite human folly. Colonial powers tried to silence your star-scribed songs, yet each wave carries residual chants back to you. You feel a swell of defiance. Lost knowledge isn't gone forever. It simply sleeps beneath layers of history, waiting for curious paddles to awaken it. Joke 3. If knowledge were a snoozing dragon, we'd be dragon whisperers by now. As you near the next atoll, torches flicker on the shoreline, modern navigators gathering to reclaim what was taken. They've rekindled night schools under coconut canopies, reviving chants and stick chart carving. You step ashore to join them, your paddle strokes echoing ancestral rhythms. Together, you piece broken shells back on stubby struts, teach novices to taste test dew-leaf signals, and gather under clouds to sing cloud chants as defiance. The horizon tilts toward a new dawn where colonial shadows lift, and your star compass is whole again. You look up at the incoming stars, Mahutonga, Set Pawehi rising, recognizing them as sentinels of revival. The wind murmurs encouragement. The hull's whale-tail prow rests on soft sand. You close your eyes, breathe in taro smoke and ocean salt, and feel the long-lost chants awaken in your bones. You murmur a final mantra. Knowledge sleeps, but never dies. And in that whisper, you vow to carry the scattered fragments onward, weaving them into new generation starlit journeys. You step onto the deck of a modern voyaging canoe at dawn, the hull gleaming with fresh paint and the whale-tail prow recarved in homage to ancestral designs. Around you, a new generation of navigators gathers, traditional practitioners, scientists, and curious adventurers united by a shared mission to rediscover and revive the ancient star path knowledge nearly lost to time. You sense the electric buzz of possibility in the salt-scented air, a fusion of old chants and cutting-edge enthusiasm that crackles like static before a tropical downpour. This is the rediscovery quest, where oral tradition meets modern scholarship under the same starlit sky. Your mentor in this revival is Nainoa Thompson, who learned star navigation from Maupiailug and went on to co-found the Polynesian Voyaging Society. He stands at the bow pointing to the rising Pauehai, formerly known to outsiders as the Southern Cross, reminding you that Pauehai means darkness, made visible, a poetic testament to the sky's hidden depths. Mainstream fact in 1976, the Hakalea's successful voyage from Hawaii to Tahiti, using solely traditional navigation, reignited interest in star path methods across the Pacific. Historians still argue whether that single voyage fully reconstructed pre-colonial techniques or introduced adaptations for modern safety standards, but its impact is undeniable. Beside Thompson, a researcher from the University of the South Pacific sets up a sonar buoy studying underwater currents interaction with star-guided courses. You admire this blend of ancient and modern sonar readings lining up with chants of currents learned in Section 4. Fringe tidbit, some revival crews have experimented with attaching small AI-driven drones to canoes, hoping the whir of drone propellers might mimic the coconut choir whispers elders once used as teaching metaphors. Scholars roll their eyes at the idea of drone choirs, yet you can't help but smile at the thought of coconut trees humming a synthesized melody. Joke one, at least these drones won't ask for coconut beer mid-voyage. As the voyage plan is laid out, you gather around a replica stick chart carved earlier that morning. The chart's angled sticks represent ocean swells. Cowrie shells mark star courses and island positions. You trace a route from Samoa to Fiji, flashing back to the Memory Islands chant from Section 7, and feeling those syllables vibrate in your chest. Mainstream fact museums in New Zealand and Fiji house original stick charts created by Marshall Islanders in the 19th century, emphasizing that these tactile maps were as vital as voices in passing star lore. Historians still argue whether those charts were navigational master plans or teaching aids only, but tonight you treat it as both. Later, you join a workshop on star compass reconstruction. Under lantern light, you learn to carve the 32 cardinal headings into koa wood, just as novices did in Section 1. The teacher recalls how her grandfather used mango wood, believing its grain aligned more naturally with star arcs. Fringe belief, some carvers swear that if you begin carving at the exact moment Aldebaran rises, the compass board will remember that stars arc making navigation more intuitive. Scientists dismiss the notion of living wood memory, but you tuck it into your mental logbook next to the timber singing stories from Section 3. Joke 2. Imagine your compass board humming somewhere over the rainbow at sunset. By nightfall, you're at the helm of a small fleet of canoes, each bearing a mixture of traditional rigs and PVC outriggers for safety. You scan the sky for the Southern Cross, recalling how novices once practiced blindfolded alignment in Section 2. Tonight, you're not blindfolded, but you feel the same thrill tracing Kalupe's glittering flight. A mainstream fact in 2012, a revival expedition guided by Nainoa Thompson successfully navigated a canoe from Hawaii to Rapa Nui using pure star compass methods, demonstrating sustained continuity of the craft. Historians still argue whether this continuity was ever truly broken or simply hidden beneath colonial suppression, yet you feel that lineage pulse under your palms. Not far offshore, a group of digital artists projects constellations onto a hanging sail at sea using mini LED lights, an homage, they say, to make the stars pop against ambient light pollution. Fringe nod, some throw in a Star Wars soundtrack for ambiance, joking that if George Lucas had known about Poeha, he'd have named the Death Star after it. Joke 3. At least these LEDs don't draw storm clouds the way some cameras do. You shake your head, happy to see creativity fueling traditional revival, even if it flirts with spectacle. Back on deck, you convene for a debate session under a swaying coconut palm. The topic, authenticity versus adaptation in modern star navigation. Scholars still argue whether introducing modern safety gear and electronic readings dilutes the authenticity of revived methods or enhances them responsibly. You contribute that oral chants taught in Section 6 about weather and dew leaf tests must remain integral, cautioning against over-reliance on barometers. A respected elder nods, reminding everyone that cultural transmission isn't static, but a living genealogical thread that both preserves and adapts. As midnight nears, you lead a star chant session weaving island sequences into your solo Memory Islands chant, this time including recently visited islands from your own voyage plan, updating the lyrics on the fly. You end with a playful verse about drone choirs and LED skies provoking laughter around the circle. Joke 4. It's the only star chant that doubles as a village open mic night. The laughter binds you, reinforcing the communal heart of navigation, shared stories, shared stars, shared journeys. Your final task is a ceremonial recalibration of the communal stick chart. Under torchlight, each navigator places a new cowrie shell at a course where they felt most guided. You add yours at the angle where Rigel's setting point perfectly matched a trade wind gust callback to Section 5's sail trimming. As your shell clicks into place, you feel a tangible connection to both past and future voyages, your pulse syncing with the hull's quiet murmur as waves lap beneath. By the voyage's end, you've stitched together knowledge anthologies, star compass carving, ocean current mapping, weather forecasting chants, memory island verses, and debates on authenticity. You realize this rediscovery quest is not a single revival event, but an ongoing tapestry stitched by every participant. And as you step ashore under the bright gaze of Powaiha, you feel that the ancient Star Path network lies open again, ready for fresh journeys. The quest continues with each new navigator's chant carving and punchline, all under the same sky that first guided your ancestors. You stand on the deck of a sleek voyaging canoe at first light sea spray, kissing your arms as you help hoist the sail that bears the painted likeness of your ancestors' whale-tail prow. Around you, a small flotilla of canoes rocks gently, each one crewed by navigators eager to retrace the ancient star routes from Tahiti to Rapa Nui Samoa to Hawaii and beyond. You grip the bamboo rail, tasting salt on your lips and feeling the low thrum of paddles slipping into the water. This is the sailing revival in full swing, where you become both student and torchbearer of a millennia-old tradition reborn. The wind is a gentle northeast breeze at first urging the canoes southwest toward the rising Powaiha, a constant you recognize from your star compass chants. Call back to Section 1. You adjust your stance, lean into the mast step, and sense how the hull's carved curve Section 3 channel the breeze into forward thrust. A mainstream fact since the late 1990s, the Polynesian Voyaging Society has organized dozens of voyages aboard Hokulea and Hikianalia that rely solely on traditional navigation, successfully completing round Pacific expeditions without electronic instruments. You feel pride pulsing in your veins, knowing you're part of a living lineage that has circled the ocean's belly more times than any GPS could count. As the canoes fan out, you keep a steady watch on the star courses. When the sun dips below the horizon, you swiftly raise a torch-lit compass board, carving silhouettes of key constellations against the darkening sky. A fringed tidbit surfaces. Some revival crews bring along small solar-powered lanternfish in glass jars, believing that the fish's glow helps novices tune their eyes for starlight, an odd practice critics call aquatic stargazing. Historians still argue whether lanternfish aid genuine navigation or merely add theatrical flair to night watches, but you laugh and admit it makes the deck feel like an underwater planetarium, no aquarium filter needed for ambiance. Joke 1. Your navigator's heart skips as the first star of the Southern Cross peaks above the swell. You point it out to your fellow crew, reciting the familiar chant, "By Powhai's cross, set your course." The canoe leans into the wind paddles, dip in unison, and you sense the vessel come alive, its hull humming with purpose. You remember the cloud-proof chants from Section 7, and when a thin veil of high clouds drifts across the sky, you switch to the alternate verse as easily as flipping a page, no search bar required. Joke 2. If you ever need a backup playlist, just hum those verses. By midnight, the flotilla glides across phosphorescent swells, tiny waves glowing like scattered gems. You pause at the bow, tracing the arc of Aldebaran Section 1 and feeling the currents whisper beneath your hull. A mainstream fact, modern revival voyages often carry marine scientists who collect water samples during transit, mapping currents and sea temperatures to understand how ancient routes may have shifted over centuries. You watch a researcher dip his bottle into the abyssal glow, wondering if he'll find traces of the same currents your ancestors exploited. Historians still argue whether those ancient currents have remained stable over the past millennium. But here and now, you navigate by both stars and data. A sudden swell rocks the canoe, and you latch a hand under the carved lashing handle, your tactile reminder of frameless navigation Section 8. The hull pitches foam, sprays your face, and you grin. Who needs a roller coaster when you've got a Pacific Gale? Joke 3. The wind picks up, teasing the sail into a fuller curve, and you lean forward to tighten the sheet, adjusting your angle to the rising moon. Another nod to lunar tide timing, taught in Section 5. As dawn creeps into the east, you break into an impromptu chant circle teaching novices the Memory Island sequence from Section 7. But updated with the new atolls you passed overnight. They echo your cadence voices soft against the dawn chorus of seabirds. A fringe assertion floats through your mind. Some claim that chanting at sunrise attracts albatrosses to fly overhead, signaling you're on the true course, a playful myth that never fails to get a laugh when a bird skims your sail. Historians still argue whether bird calls guided ancient navigators intentionally or were serendipitous cues. But you watch a lone albatross glide past and nod. Seems legit. Joke 4. Later that day, you join the flotilla's nightly symposium on deck, where navigators compare notes on star positions, wind shifts, and ocean swells. A veteran navigator demonstrates how to calibrate sea state observations against live sonar readings, modern tech woven into ancient method. You marvel at how these live voyages bridge the chasm between storytelling chants and scientific instrumentation, forging a tapestry richer than either strand alone. Historians still argue whether such hybrid voyages dilute the purity of traditional navigation or enhance its resilience. But you decide it's both safe and spectacular. Under a full moon, you take your turn at the helm, tracing a new route that skirts remote reef chain. You align the prow with Powhai's lower star and feel the canoe pivot like a dancer finding its mark. You park your paddle in the holder and let the current carry you, leaning back to watch the galaxy swirl overhead. The luminescent plankton glows beneath, and you whisper to the sea, "Thank you for guiding us back to ourselves. A fringe tactic taught by revival elders involves dropping biodegradable dye to create temporary paths in the water, a colorful spectacle critics call eco-bottle art. You reckon it adds joy without harm, and you dip your fingers in the rosy swirl just to leave a little fingerprint of your journey. As the voyage nears its final leg, you gather the flotilla under a star party on deck. You point out Kalupe rising in the northeast, recite the chant from Section 2, emphasizing the sacred connection between elder teachers and living oceans, and invite everyone to share personal reflections. The air hums with collective memory, each navigator's voice a thread weaving into a grand revival tapestry. You note how the logs carved under thatch-lit nights, Section 3, have now sailed thousands of miles, fulfilling the promise carved into their grain. By the last night, you're exhausted and exhilarated. Your body aches from paddling. Your mind thrums with chants, currents, and constellations. But beneath it all, you feel a deep calm. This sailing revival has reclaimed lost roots and spun them into fresh stories. You lean against the mast, close your eyes, and let the hull's rocking lull you into a meditative state where the sky's map and the sea's pathways converge into one infinite loop of navigation. You breathe in sync with cosmic rhythm, carrying the revival spirit forward with each pulse. You lean back against the gentle arc of the hull, watching phosphorescent ripples unfurl like liquid starlight beneath the canoe. The ocean's breath is slow and steady, each swell a heartbeat, syncing with the cosmos overhead. You feel the wood beneath you pulse with the memory of every star arc carved into its grain, called back to Section 3, as though the hull itself has inherited your ancestors' lullaby. In this moment of deep reflection, you realize that navigation is not just about finding land. It's about feeling an ancient bond, a cosmic thread weaving sea and sky into one seamless tapestry. Your ears tune into the hush of waves lapping the hull, a whispered chorus that seems to echo star chants from memory islands. Call back to Section 7. You savor the scent of salt and wet koa wood. Each inhale a soft percussion that grounds you more firmly than any digital dashboard. Mainstream fact Polynesian navigators often held nightly rituals to honor the ocean as a living ancestor, acknowledging its dual role as both provider and potential peril. A tradition documented by early ethnographers in the 19th century mainstream fact. You close your eyes, letting the ocean's quiet hymn fill your senses. In the hush, a fringe tidbit drifts into your awareness. Some old-timers swore that on the calmest nights, you could hear the gentle hum of the ocean's voice through hollowed canoe beams, a low-frequency vibration they called the sea's soul song. Modern scientists dismiss it as acoustic hallucination, but you tuck that notion beside the wind whisper choir anecdotes from Section 5 and cloud chants from Section 6. There's something poetic in believing the boat itself hums cosmic tunes. No Spotify playlist could match this subterranean symphony. Joke 1. If your hull starts auto-playing under the sea, you'll know it's time to check your sea legs. Your mind drifts upward to the dome of stars, each one a glimmering waypoint in your personal atlas. You recall how novices once carved coconut board compasses under torchlight Section 1, tracing 32 star headings with shaky fingers. Tonight, You trace them mentally, your thoughts skimming over arcs like skiffs across dark water. Historians still argue whether these mental frameworks were taught through formal apprenticeships or emerged organically from solo voyages. But you know that learning by immersion, the gentle rocking under a flawless galaxy, is the truest classroom. You smile at the thought that this cosmic curriculum never ends. Soft laughter bubbles up as you remember your grandmother's joke about needing VPN for clear star views, because even the sky seems to block out bad connections. Sometimes, call back to Section 2. You let out a gentle chuckle. Modern tech might beam satellite signals, but it can't beam the ocean's pulse into your veins. Joke 2. When was the last time your smartwatch congratulated you on a perfect tack? Exactly. Here on deck, every adjustment of sail and hull is its own reward, without a progress bar in sight. A cooling breeze whispers across your face, carrying the faint tang of distant atolls and mangrove blossoms. You reach for the pandanus leaf dew test from Section 6, brushing it lightly against your palm. No sticky residue tonight, just a whisper of humidity, signaling clear skies. You exhale and feel the tension in your shoulders melt into the deck's smooth curvature. Each breath is a meditation. Inhale, sky, exhale, ocean. Inhale, ocean, exhale, sky. In this reciprocal exchange, you're both student and teacher, charting internal routes as vital as any open sea course. As you drift in this tranquil state, you contemplate the fragile balance that sustains you. A sudden chill at the nape of your neck reminds you of an ancient ceremonial practice. Polynesian navigators once donned special copper cloth cloaks during reflective nights, believing the fabric carried ancestral chants woven into its fibers. Fringe belief holds that these cloaks could whisper navigation prompts when wrapped snugly around the shoulders. Scholars still argue whether copper cloth mnemonics were widespread or symbolic rituals, but you imagine the comforting rustle of cloth reciting star verses as you rest against it. There's a solitary magic in that tactile connection. Finally, you let your mind drift beyond specific techniques and stories, surrendering to the ocean's vast embrace. Here, under a web of silver lights, you feel the weight of history and the exhilaration of endless possibility, coexisting like dual currents beneath you. Modern voyages may incorporate sonar drones or LED-lit sails, call back to sections 11 and 12, but these tools are threads in a larger weave, not the whole tapestry. True navigation resides in the still dialogue between your heartbeat, the hull's grain, and the cosmic panorama above. You close your eyes, cradled by the canoe's gentle rocking, and murmur a final mantra. Sea and sky, guide my soul. In that whispered vow, you honor the ancestors, the elders, and the novices who will follow in your wake. The gentle waves hum in response, as though affirming that the ocean remembers every voyage and that the stars once plotted in the heavens now rest in your heart. And as you drift toward the edge of wakefulness, you carry this moment of deep reflection as a luminous beacon, igniting both compass and spirit for the journeys yet to come. You settle into the woven pandanus mat beneath a sky still twinkling with retreating stars, your body heavy and your mind humming with learned rhythms. The hull beneath you creaks softly as if echoing a lullaby, and you inhale the faint scent of salt wood resin and night-blooming jasmine from the shore. Tonight is not about steering or chanting. It's about departure dreams, those twilight voyages you carry in your sleep when the ocean and sky continue teaching even after your eyes close. As you lie back, you feel the double hull's gentle sway lulling you toward reverie, a final preparation before the full wind down of Section 15's calming closure. You press a small carved driftwood dream token shaped like your canoe's whale tail from Section 3 into your palm. The token's smooth grain warms under your fingers, and you use it as a focal point to let your mind drift. Mainstream fact: many ancient Polynesian navigators practiced dream incubation sleeping under stars with the intent of receiving navigational visions, believing that the subconscious could solve complex root puzzles. Mainstream fact. Tonight, you're consciously planting seeds for those visions, trusting that the chants of memory islands and the curves of your hull will bloom into lucid guidance while you sleep. A fringed tidbit floats at the edge of your thoughts. Some elders swore that if you chewed a tiny pandanus shoot before bedtime, your dreams would project star paths onto the inside of your eyelids, a phenomenon they called starlight imprint. Scientists wave this off as placebo effect, but you tuck the story alongside tales of coconut choir and wind whisper choirs as a playful nod to ancient ingenuity. You snap off a sliver of pandanus, its fibrous sweetness lingering on your tongue, and close your eyes imagining constellations unfurling across the canvas of your mind's eye. You feel the night breeze brush your cheeks, carrying the faint patter of distant surf against reef, a rhythm that syncs with your heartbeat. You recall Section 6's climate lessons, the cool dew and shifting cloud banks that once demanded your attention, but now simply fade into dreamlike backdrops. Here you conjure velvety clouds parting to reveal star clusters, each one vibrating with mnemonic energy from your earlier chants. Historians still argue whether dream incubation was a formalized training step or an informal byproduct of nightly stargazing, but you choose to embrace both possibilities as you drift. Your eyelids flutter as you summon the memory of Section 8's frameless navigation, picturing yourself tracing the Milky Way's band with your fingertips. In your mind, the horizon line rises and falls like a gentle wave, and you practice steering by thought alone, your subconscious weaving routes between imaginary islets. Joke 1. If your dream self starts ordering coconuts via satellite, you'll know technology has overrun your subconscious island retreat. You chuckle in half-sleep, the sound muffled by your pillow of woven fibers. You let images from Section 5 flash across your inner screen, the whispering winds sliding across the sail, the booming of trade gusts like distant applause. You imagine your dream canoe catching a soft nocturnal breeze that dissolves into stardust, carrying you toward distant atolls. The dream sail billows with cosmic motifs, tiny LED-like sparks tracing star courses you learned in Section 1. Historians still argue whether Polynesian navigators used nocturnal visualization deliberately or simply absorbed star arcs through nightly immersion. But your subconscious seems to blend both in technicolor precision. As your breathing deepens, you sense the subtler currents from Section 4 weaving through your dream sea, pulling you gently eastward. You recall feeling those veiled currents beneath your hull, and now imagine them as shimmering ribbons guiding your dream voyage. A playful thought surfaces, if you feel a tug on your sock in dreamland, you'll know the equatorial countercurrent wants a cameo joke too. You smile, feeling the ribbon currents slip through your imagined hull with ease. Your mind drifts to the Memory Island's chant of Section 7, its verses layering over dream imagery of verdant atolls rising like emerald mists. You recite Le Honu, Huamoku, Mauloa, under your breath, each syllable dissolving into the ocean's hush. The chant weaves islands into star vignettes, and you see yourself stepping ashore on dream sand, the heels of your canoe sinking just enough to imprint palm fronds and shell patterns in the inky black surf. Historians still argue whether these chants were meant for waking instruction or nocturnal rehearsal, but tonight they feel like a lullaby in the key of navigation. Your room around you seems to expand, the woven walls blur into a cosmic panorama, and your pillow shifts into the shape of Section 9's challenging horizons, storm clouds gathering as you dream steer the canoe. You navigate those dream storms with calm assurance, recalling how you once faced real squalls and bioluminescent reefs by instinct alone. Section 9. A final joke drifts to the surface. If your dream self pulls out an umbrella app, you'll know you've let modern life hack the ancient code. You giggle softly into your mat, the echo of laughter mingling with the hush of the night. Slowly, you let the dream navigation settle into a serene stasis. The hull's rocking morphs into gentle ocean through lines, each wave a lull that sinks you deeper between worlds. You focus on the rhythm of your exhales, imagining them as the paddles dipping into calm water stroke after stroke, carrying you toward a restful shoreline. The boundary between active instruction and restful dreaming dissolves. Star compass chants, hull curves, currents, winds, clouds, and islands fuse into one seamless navigation art that lives even when you rest. In this in-between space, you permit yourself to drift without chart or chant, trusting the woven tapestry of experiences to guide you. The ocean and sky merge into a single, gentle voice, softer than any spoken command, but clearer than any compass needle. You sense the dream's final phase approaching. A corridor of starlight opens, beckoning you forward with quiet assurance. As your mind slides beneath the tide of sleep, you feel the ancestors' presence, elders from Section 2, smiling in flickering torchlight canoe builders from Section 3, carving arcs in wood revival navigators from Sections 11 and 12, raising sails beneath LED-lit skies, all converging in a chorus of guiding breaths. You murmur a last conscious vow. Carry this voyage into my dreams. The vow becomes white mist against your lips, and then it dissolves. In the stillness that follows, you cross the threshold into departure dreams, where navigation continues in silent partnership between your spirit and the starry ocean. The waves hush, the wind stills, the stars hover as beacons in velvet black. Your final waking thought is a soft smile, a playful half-joke. If you find land in your dreams, don't wake up too soon. There's plenty more ocean to explore. You lie on the deck as a gentle hush settles around the flotilla, the night's final breath merging with the soft panting of lapping waves. There is no urgent chant to recite, no carved beams to trace, only the lingering echo of ancestors riding on the salt-scented breeze. In this whispering farewell, the canoe becomes both cradle and sanctuary rocking you toward the boundary between wakefulness and dream. The carved whale tail at the prow rests like a silent promise pointing toward distant horizons that await new dawns. You feel the planks beneath you shift in a slow rhythmic sway, as if the hull itself takes one last bow before resting. The tropical night air hangs thick smelling of sea grapes and night-blooming jasmine, weaving a sensory tapestry that drapes you in calm. You reach out, brushing a finger along the silver-gilded outline of the star compass on the deck, tracing paths you have walked with your eyes and feet. And in that simple act, you sense the whole voyage folding neatly into memory. Each star arc, each island chant, each wave-pierced heartbeat, marking a chapter now complete. The elders once insisted on a closing ceremony, a final lowering of the sail beneath moonlight, accompanied by a communal verse honoring the sea as living ancestor. Mainstream fact, many Pacific communities historically concluded ocean journeys with music and offerings cast into the water, believing this act ensured safe returns and honored spirits of the deep mainstream fact. You recall standing in circular formation at the stern torches, flickering like captured fireflies, voices rising in farewell tones that blended star chants, ocean hymns, and laughter. Tonight, you replicate that ritual in private, softly reciting the verse your grandmother taught you, words that drift upward like tiny boats seeking home. You release a small handful of broken sennit braid into the waves. The fibers vanish beneath the surface, symbolizing the closing of this chapter. A fringed tidbit surfaces. Some seniors swore that those tossed fibers carried personal stories to the ocean floor, becoming seeds of future voyages after 1,000 years of drift and memory. Scholars still argue whether such offerings were believed literal conveyors of fate or poetic tokens to bind community, and sea historians still argue whether farewell offerings were symbolic or enacted as binding pacts. You smile at the thought that a piece of your craft drifts forever, weaving its story into the ocean's tapestry. There is time for light-hearted closure even here. You nudge a companion and joke that if skeleton crew paddles show up at dawn, they should bring coffee, seafoam macchiatos, preferred no lantern light required. That's one joke, breaking the solemn hush with a reminder that humor like breeze carries best over water. You tuck your sleeping mat beneath the deck beams, an appropriation of the dream incubation spots you learned about earlier. The deck's notches underfoot align with the mental horizon board callback to Section 8, offering tactile reassurance even in near darkness. You lay out your sleeping gear, arranging a pillow of pandanus fronds and a thin copper cloth, feeling the fabric's faint imprint of ancestral weaving. There's something deeply serene in settling on planks that have guided countless voyages, repurposed now as a gentle cradle. You giggle softly. A seashell pillow would squeak at sunrise, but at least the hull wood remains silent. Joke 2. Your thoughts drift back through the chapters of this journey, the star compass that saved you from disorientation, the elders' playful chants, the hammering of adzes shaping your vessel from raw log to celestial map. Call back to Section 3, the veiled currents and whispering winds, the memory islands and frameless navigation, the storms that tested you, and the revival voyages that offered hope. You feel an expansive calm, a sense that every taut syllable and carved contour pulses within your veins. You envision the next generation gathering around torchlight to learn the same lessons, each story igniting fresh curiosity, like tiny lanterns dotting a vast sea. It occurs to you that farewell does not mean goodbye. It means passing the torch into hands, unwearying those who will read the stars with fresh eyes and steadier hands. A gentle breeze stirs the sail's supple edge, and you wrap your arms around your knees, absorbing the hush. You exhale, tasting salt sand and promise. As your eyelids grow heavy, you reaffirm that the whispering farewell is not an end, but an interlude. It is a pause between voyages whose rhythms begin again with the first glimmer of dawn. You trace a final mental map of the Southern Cross's 4 points, feeling the familiar pull between Mahealani and Pauehi, and you murmur a soft self-challenge, "May my dreams chart courses as true as my waking thoughts." That is your third joke to the night breeze, dreaming of Starpath GPS without a single battery in sight. The hull shifts gently buoyed by unseen currents repurposed from past journeys and opening pathways for tomorrow's travels. A distant gull calls its cry a lone chord in an otherwise silent symphony. You smile, tucking that sound into your heart as an emblem of farewell sublime, fleeting, and full of promise. You close your eyes, letting the hull's rocking settle into a steady rhythm beneath your ribs, matching the cadence of the tides below and the arc of distant constellations above. The star's faint glow seeps through the tiny gaps in the sail's seams, painting shifting patterns on your eyelids. In this liminal space between wakefulness and slumber, you feel enveloped by a grand continuum. The tides, the stars, the canoes, the chants, the currents, the winds, the clouds, the islands, all woven into one living story. The whispering farewell gently loosens your grip on the day's achievements, guiding you into a realm where navigation continues in the quiet realm of dreams. And as the canoe rocks you into stillness, you carry this final echo as a gentle guide, trusting that when dawn greets you again, your voyage will begin anew, softly charted by stars and sealed with the ocean's hush. Now, the ocean's lull begins to whisper gently through your mind, slowing every thought to a calm gathering of soft waves. Each crest and trough fades into a soft breath, as if the sea itself exhales on your eyelids, gently coaxing every muscle to relax. Your heartbeat matches the steady rhythm of swaying hulls and distant surf, and the stars you memorize now hover faint and diffuse like glowing embers settling on ancient fire. In this final embrace, awareness gives way to restful surrender, and every concern is carried away on a breeze as light as sea foam. You feel the salt air warm yet soothing, brushing against your skin one last time. The carved prow at your side stands silent, its whale tail shape a steadfast guardian, even as fatigue draws you deeper into ease. The chants, the hull carving the ocean currents, the memory islands, they all blend into a tranquil backdrop, a gentle melody that no longer requires words or melodies. Instead, you lie adrift in that melody's softest refrain, where each breath becomes a tender wave lapping at the shore of consciousness. No longer must you track star positions or adjust sails. Those tasks rest safely within your mind's quieter chambers, ready to awaken with tomorrow's light. Tonight, there is only this soothing hush, the soft resonance of water against wood, the distant song of mangroves and moonlit ripples, and your own exhale. Let go of direction and distance. Your voyage resides in peaceful stillness. Here dreams unfurl like sails in breezes, and you flow with ease to islands of rest. Embrace the hush. Feel the calm. Drift, traveler, into the depths of a tranquil slumber, guided by the faint heartbeat of sea and star, until dawn's glow kisses your eyelids and awakens your spirit once more. End of script. Sweet dreams.